So, so we'll take a minute or two. I know it's 9:30. We want to start now, but there are some folks who might join as well. I expect around 15 of them to join this session today. So, in the meanwhile, let's make sure that you can see my screen and you all can hear me properly. Give me a number for my audio. 1 is bad, 5 is okay, 10 is good for my audio. And also tell me if you can see my screen, please. Okay, got Okay, I'm back again. Can you please tell me if my audio is okay now? Just give me a number. 10 is good, 5 is okay, 1 is bad. Just tell me, who is on the call, please let me know what number, what rating can you give for my audio. Okay, I got a bunch of 4, 5, 4, 8, 5, 5, 10, 10. So it kind of really varies. Okay, so you probably want to, maybe you want to try and, adjust your speaker settings or your volume settings and see if it works better for you. And I do have somebody saying they have a hard time hearing me. The hands up, you may want to check your speaker or your microphone or headset. Because it looks like a lot of people are able to hear me properly. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. I'm actually trying to be a little louder as possible as well, but please. I already shared my screen. Can you all see my screen? Yeah. So really, you should be able to see my screen properly now. When I close this chat window, I think it should be fine. Okay, good. All right, guys. So we have around 18 folks, including me, on the call. Just want to read out the name: Alfonso, Mo, Augustine, Ben, Wright, Ishan, Sahin, Kalpana, Savita, Muhammad, Mukesh, Rahul, Reshmi, Sunita, Tester, Test. Someone is testing me. Tom, Vicky. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining this session. So my name is Sam. I think a lot of people on this call already know who I am. I am associated with the 101 ERP as a project manager, and I do a lot of things. A majority of my time is spent doing a lot of presentations for businesses, customers, vendors, and also some sessions for the individuals like you. Couple of sessions probably a month. I've been a project manager for about 5, 6, 7 years, but been in the SAP for about 15, 16 years, I think. Now, today's topic is about SAP integration using ALE IDOCS and EDI. We are putting together a training program for SAP integration. We don't do this often. We do it once in a while based on the request from a lot of people who's with us. But on request, we do have this training. So our focus today, I have an agenda, I have some slides, and I will go into SAP and show you a few things. But the focus of today's presentation is for you to understand some basic insight into SAP integration. And also to realize why SAP integration is something that an SAP consultant must know or learn or get trained on. And that's one of the reasons why we have this presentation today. So obviously, I've muted everybody. By nature of how the webinar works, I've muted everybody or automatically you all are muted. But feel free to send your question, ask them when we go through. I won't immediately stop and come back to your questions, but eventually, at the end of this presentation, I will try and make and answer all the possible questions that you guys have, given me, and go from there. All right. So at any point in time, if you feel that I'm lost, or you can't hear me or see my screen, just put me on the chat. If in case we get disconnected, please dial back into the same number and same link. We will disconnect just in case if you have any network issues or connection issues. All right, we have about 21 folks on the line today. Those who joined just now, thank you very much for joining. We are just going to start with our first slide. Okay. The topic, as you see here, is SAP integration training, ALE IDOCS EDI, and the objective is to understand, design, implement, and support enterprise-level interfaces from SAP. That's the actual focus of the training. But consider today as a class one or orientation into this 10 hours training program. Maybe today is probably the class one. Go to my next slide here, which I think you already saw. If you have any questions, concerns, feedback, comments, emails, we're training at 101ERP.com. They manage all these schedules and everything, and they also manage the feedback, so feel free to email them, training@101ERP.com. Okay, so I have an agenda that I want to share with you guys before we go into the actual presentation. So, introduction. So let me, so you know what I do. So let me understand what you guys do, right? So please tell me, have you been trained in SAP already? Are you working on which module you're trained in, or which module you're working on? So I can basically base my discussion or conversation around it. So use the chat window and please let us know. I think the chat application is seen by a lot of people here. So well, let us know which module you're trained or which module you're working. If you are. So we have SD, ABAP, trained in FI. We have somebody in MM, SRM, WM, SD. So I'm waiting for other folks to let us know what you're into, which module you're into. Are you working or you got trained? FICO, FICO. Another FICO. Come on, guys, really quick. Working in MMWM since 10 years. SRM. Okay, so not everybody answered, but we will take that as some input into what we want to do today. Okay. Subject to the actual training is to give you guys an insight into how SAP to non-SAP integration actually works. Now, as a consultant in SAP, how would you approach an integration task that is assigned to you? And how would you design, how would you set up, and how would you fix problems when you are given some task related to integrating SAP with other modules? When I say integrating SAP ECC, we are specific to the ERP side of the SAP ECC module. That's what our focus will be. And it could be any module, FICO or HCM or MM or WM or SD or QM or PP or whatever modules within ECC or that you are into, you can tab up as well. Okay? Whatever module you're into within the framework of SAP ECC, this training can give you a good understanding into how you can work on integration aspects of integrating your module, obviously, with other systems. Now we'll go into the details about, for some of them, this might be a very new topic, or confusing topic. Why am I even, that I need to take? I'm a functional MM consultant, I'm a functional WM consultant, or should I worry about integration? We'll get into that in a bit. But there is a reason why you should. So the prerequisite is you should have some knowledge in the module that you're getting into. If without getting any training or any kind of experience working in MM or SD or ABAP or FICO, etc., as you see here, getting into this training program is going to be very challenging for you to understand. Yeah, you can learn and do stuff, obviously, but you will not even, it's going to be very challenging. No programming knowledge is required. This is not a programming training. It's not an ABAP training. There is not a security or a basics related training here. This is an integration, how you work with integrating SAP and non-SAP systems. It applies to functional technical consultants. So why you should take this course, right? So let's go to one of my slides that I want to share first. Here is a picture. This is again a sample picture or a diagram. And when you go to a customer to work in the future, or if you're working with a customer, a client, or any client that is using SAP to run their business, SAP is not the only system they are most likely using. Okay? They have a lot of other systems that actually connects with SAP. If you see, there are some samples here. SAP ECC connects with MES, Manufacturing Execution System, which in turn connects with shop floor. This is more related to production planning and execution. SAP ECC connects with WMS, Warehouse Management System, connects with planning system or forecast system. It connects with vendors. It connects with customers. It connects with banks. It connects with Ariba, which is a procurement system. EAMS is an asset management system. See, all these blue color, blocks here, they are not SAP systems. They are either home-built legacy systems or systems that is actually bought by your client or customer to solve a specific purpose. And if you see all these green blocks here, they are the middleware systems. SAP cannot talk directly with these systems. Yeah, SAP can talk actually, but that is not the optimal, or that's not the right way, or that's not the best way to talk. Even though they have capabilities and all. Usually we incorporate what we call as the middleware systems, like SAP PI is a middleware system. iSoft is a middleware system. MD Message Broker, IBM Message Broker, GIS, IBM. Now it's bought over by IBM, which is a middleware system. And all these blocks like vendors, customers, and banks, they are great ones. They're actually outside the firewall of the organization or the customer they're getting into. When I say outside the firewall, it means that they're actually not controlled by your client or your customer or your business. They're controlled by third party, other companies, right? So I'm sure you are going to come across this kind of picture eventually in your SAP career. Guaranteed, mark my words. When you work on, as a consultant in SAP over a period of time or immediately or, whenever you have an opportunity, you might be given task with integration, integrating SAP with other systems. And it is impossible for SAP to be a standalone system. When I say standalone, it is actually a standalone system by the nature of how SAP is, stuff, but it cannot be without integrating with other systems. Definitely not with our vendors, definitely not with our customers, definitely not with our banks. Let's take an example. Materials management, procurement, right? SAP, we create purchase requisitions, we convert them into purchase orders, we approve the purchase orders. And what happens after we approve the purchase orders? We need to send the purchase order to a vendor, right? Only then the vendor can ship the products to your site or warehouse or plant, whatever it might be. So how do you send it to the vendor is what we're talking about. Now, it used to be, a long time back, it used to be fax. Or you call the vendor is an option, you email the vendor is an option, you fax the vendor is an option. You can actually send a post, to a vendor, it's an option. But those days are long gone. Now we are in the world of electronic and digital age where things happen digitally. So, and EDI is another terminology that you're going to come across where you integrate SAP with different, vendors. Not we don't have one vendor, you have many different vendors. You have custom, vendors who supply different products to you, or raw materials or products to your client or warehouse. Similarly, customers will have to place orders online, and the online order comes to your SAP ECC system. And finance, if you want to send an invoice to a customer, you again use EDI or whatever the means that we're going to talk, to send the invoice to customers. The banks also have to transact with SAP, for all the other necessary transactions. So if you see, there is also this orange color block that talks about that is SAP APO, SAP WMS. These are SAP servers. They're not part of SAP ECC, but they are standalone SAP servers, but they also have to integrate with SAP ECC. APO is obviously advanced planning, system which actually, plans and specs and plans and creates production. Is responsible for creating production orders into ECC. Warehouse management system, it might be it's a standalone system that actually works with ECC to get the necessary, data so that it can actually work with shop floor or other systems. Now it is a very difficult thought process at this moment for you, because you might not have come across this kind of picture, but you will eventually. And this is a very simple scenario, a simple, way of putting things together. But when you go to clients and businesses who work multinational and companies that have operations across the globe, and when you go to those companies, those businesses to work, these pictures become really, really big. There's so many, arrow marks going here and there, and obviously, what this basically translates to is you need to bring in information and take out information from SAP ECC systems, right? So when you bring in data or you take out data or you bring in information or take out information from SAP ECC system to other systems, it could be within your own firewall. When I say firewall, within your own network, of your company or outside your network, you need to have certain tools and ideas and knowledge and skills for you to do it. Now, who does all these things, right? When it is partly a middleware system role, but partly your own, as a consultant, you might be playing a role very well here as a functional consultant. A functional consultant, keep in mind when you are studying, when you are working, you come across the RISE, report interfaces, conversion forms, and answer and all these things. And RI stands for interfaces. That's going to be one of the objects that we plan into the project plan to work on those interfaces. What those interfaces are nothing but all these items, integrating SAP MM with vendors, SAP FI with customers, FI with banks, SAP QM with let's say MES system, or PP with MES system. So all these interfaces are something that you have to build, test, and implement for your clients. So that is when we talk about interfaces, keep in mind these green boxes here are the middleware systems. You don't really have to work on these systems. As a functional consultant, if you're an SAP consultant, you don't need to work on these systems, but you need to understand these systems. Very important, because you are going to come up with solutions. You will be responsible for the solution. You will be responsible for what data the client, the customer, or vendor needs. You will be responsible to make sure it is built, it is tested, and it is implemented. But without having an understanding of how integration works, without having an understanding of how all these middleware system works, you can't come up with that design. You can't come up with the architecture of how things work and how to fix things and all those things. I'm not saying you're going to immediately get into building interfaces in your client, but you're going to come across this. Today or tomorrow, IDOC is something that you're going to hear anyways. So we'll look into those things. So this is a very important picture to keep in mind when we talk about interfaces in our training program. All right, let me pause here for a second. I know some people have asked questions, but I'm going to come with the questions later. But so far, can you all hear me properly and see my screen? Okay, so I got a bunch of good response. Yes, yes, yes. And I think I'm recording this session. I'm using a different computer now. This is a first-time recording, so hopefully the recording will come good, and it will be shared on our social networking platform. Our social networking platform is 8mmsmile.com. All our videos is shared there. You will have free access to the videos and questions or whatever we're doing today. Okay. So hold on to your questions. I would like to hear from you on your questions eventually. Right away, let's go back to a previous slide. So why you should take this course is, as a consultant, when you're working or going to work on SAP project, you're certainly going to come across tasks related to interfaces, ALE, EDI, etc. The critical need for integration. Upgrading your skill set will add value to your career. And the duration of this course is 10 hours. We are planning for 2 hours class, but I'm pretty sure it's going to go more than 10 hours. But anyway, that's the plan. Today's agenda, we'll go into the SAP Enterprise Integration, need for integration. We'll look into some components like EDI, ALE, IDOCS. Then we'll go to SAP and we'll try to do some transactions to basically solidify what we understood in this session today. Okay. All right. So we saw this picture. So why? So as we noticed with many customers, clients, and business, SAP ERP is not the only application to handle the day-to-day businesses. They have several other applications supporting different activities like planning, forecasting, MES, warehouse management systems, Ariba, EAMS, like enterprise asset management systems, so many different systems. Okay, and also when you're doing an SAP implementation, keep in mind the company that you're actually, let's use the word customer or business. The customer business that you're implementing SAP, they have already been in the business for the last several years, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? What does that mean? They already have different systems. They might have an Oracle system or mainframe or AS400 or Microsoft-based or custom-built Java system, whatever ERP system or multiple ERP systems, we call them as legacy systems. They have all these systems, right? But without these systems, how can they actually function? And when you do the SAP implementation, one of the biggest objectives for the implementation is to retire all these systems, legacy systems, so that many functions can happen in SAP. But this retiring those systems is not instant. It's not big bang. They usually do it slowly. Keep in mind, these businesses were used to those systems for several years, and they won't immediately disconnect those systems. So there will be an interface between that system and your SAP system for certain business activities or getting data back and forth or do certain things. And then they will retire slowly. And the flow of data and information across ERP and non-SAP systems plays a vital role in handling day-to-day business critical transactions to keep up ERP synced with other non-SAP systems. For example, going back to our picture here, MES, which stands for Manufacturing Execution System. This is shop floor, right? Shop floor is the place where the actual execution happens. That's where you can consider as an assembly line. You can consider as actually the work center where the actual, things happen, where the machines are there, right? So, but the shop floor system is more machine. It has a lot of control systems. SAP has its own manufacturing execution, module that they're actually marketing right now. It is a good module, but every business practice is different. So that's why every company or business will stick with the shop floor system or production system, a production execution system for a long period of time without just believing in SAP to get over it. SAP is a great planning system. It can plan and load and report a lot of good things, but it is not a good execution system. That's my opinion. A lot of people also say the same thing. But either way, so that's the MES systems. It's more like the software that connects with machines and control systems and a lot of feedback and all, right? So they really work close with the shop floor system. But MES and the shop floor, let's combine together, we call it as MES system. So this MES system needs data on what to manufacture. It has and which material to manufacture, how much quantity to be used to manufacture so and so finished product or semi-finished product, and and what batch to use, and where to move the inventory. All these information has to come from ECC system. So ECC should send those information in the form of IDOCS or XML file or FLAC file or web services. There's so many different ways of communicating. We'll look into that later. But the idea is MES has to extract data from ECC, production planning system, and do their actual work. Warehouse management system. Let's say we have a warehouse management system. Let's say that your business actually procured another company, a distribution center, let's say, okay? But the distribution center that they actually purchased, it already had SAP WMS implemented. And that's the whole distribution system or warehouse management system works through SAP WMS system. Since we bought this company, this becomes a part of our landscape too, right? So ECC will integrate a WMS system to tell them what transfer order, order and transfer order confirmation back to ECC system that has to happen. This integrated the SAP WM system or IM system, inventory management system. Then let's say Ariba, SAP MM module has to send, some, let's say, cost center related purchase orders to Ariba system, which is a procurement system. And Ariba can also work with vendors too. And similarly, customers, SAP has to get the orders from the customers, send back the order confirmation to the customers, and which is a SD module. So PP, MM, WM, IM, SD, and obviously we have QM that can also integrate. We have plant maintenance that integrates EAMS module. which is an asset management system. Plant maintenance has to send all the inspection-related details to them. So every module within SAP ECC has, in one or the other way, has to integrate other systems. Now, will all these modules have to integrate with our system? No, it depends on the client or the company you're going to work for, or business that you're going to work for. But you'll always come across integration. There is no way, in my experience, or many people I spoke, there's no way you're going to come across a business that does not function, that functions only with the SAP system, not any other system. They all have to integrate at one point in time. And implementing these integration or interfaces, we call it interfaces, is actually the means of communicating, is going to be a big task. If the integration, there are too many interfaces, then your client might put together a small integration team itself. If the integration aspect is minimal, then they're usually taken care by your own SAP system. So either way. So for instance, a manufacturing client use non-SAP system to handle the production and shop floor activities and use SAP ERP. Logistic model, but sales, purchasing, and warehouse management. The non-SAP system does not know what to produce and how many to produce, but this information is available in SAP ERP as a result of forecasting or orders received in SAP ERP, which is SD model, use an API or not. So it is important that these details are sent back to non-SAP system in real time or near real time for actual production to take place and finally getting back the information to update the inventory level, right? So that's one. These are some notes on why it is important. Now, how can this be done? The next question. Here's a small diagram, a close-up diagram, obviously. It's just, ERP, we have middleware system and we have non-SAP systems. Middleware is a very critical system that connects the two systems. Let's say SAP speaks. Let's say SAP is a person and other systems are other different people. SAP cannot speak directly with them, but most of the cases they won't speak directly because they may not speak the same language. The dictionary, the database, dictionary, the way these fields and values and the conditions around how the data is prepared in SAP will not be the same as how other systems behave. They don't talk to each other directly. That's why you need to have a translator and a router. The middleware system does two things. One is they translate the message so that whatever SAP is sending, it is sent to the partner or the other systems in the way the other system likes it. Or whatever the other system sends to SAP, this will translate in such a way that SAP likes it. And not only translation, it also does the routing work. Routing means, we have only we usually have only one or more middleware systems based on the scenarios and on what we do and what our plans are. But if you see, this one middleware system can connect with multiple end systems or multiple SAP systems also. It's many to many. That's the kind of connection this middleware system actually does. So if you see the message broker, MQSI, message broker, TIBCO, BizDoc, TI, GIS, ISOP, GIS, MFT, etc. And you'll find tons and tons of other softwares that can do the middleware tasks. But GIS, TI, MQSI, ISOP, they're all same as ones, in my opinion. So there are several tools available within SAP that can be used to integrate SAP and non-SAP systems. Similarly, with the non-SAP systems, often comes with their own tools for integrating with SAP systems. Okay. So, are these tools, straightforward? No. The tools are available, but you need to run a project to make sure the integration has to run correctly. Keep in mind there are two different systems. It is not easy to integrate them. It is extremely very critical, and it is a very time-consuming and also an important thing to do is to spend a lot of time and focus in understanding what these interfaces are and how they need to be transmitted to different systems back and forth. All right, so how basically says there are tools available. Sometimes you have to use a standard SAP tool, sometimes you have to customize them. All right, so we'll come back to that later. So we'll talk about the components a bit here. So see this picture here. The first thing that should come to anybody's mind when we talk about interfaces or integration is EDI, which stands for electronic data interchange. It is a very old concept. It's a global concept, it's an old concept. A lot of people across the globe, across not only SAP, from other softwares, other ERP systems, EDI is a known terminology. It is a standard way of communicating with the outside world. See, these softwares are all built by different vendors, different minds, different knowledge set, it has different databases, different programming tools, right? It's like people talking many different languages. You need to have a translator. You need to have a standard way of communicating. Email, for example, a standard way of communicating. So similarly, EDI is a standard way of communicating. We have ANSI, we have EDIFACT, there are a couple of different standards also available, but commonly used is in ANSI in US and EDIFACT in UK and all. They're almost the same, but they're not similar. They have their own stuff that we need to take care of. But either way, SAP ECC sends the message to the middleware system. Let's take, for example, SAP PI is a middleware system in the form of IDOCS. IDOCS is the word that we use for intermediate documents. And we use this word only in the SAP world. When you're if you step out of the SAP world, you don't use the word IDOCS. You use the word EDI. Excuse me. So the IDOCS, the message that is taken from ECC is sent to SAP PI or any other middleware like ISOC or message broker or MQSI, and then that is eventually sent to a translator. A translator, like it used to be like Innoviz and Gentron. There are so many translators available. There are the third-party companies. What they do is they take your message and they translate to the non-SAP system. See all these green ones here? They could be customers, they could be vendors, they could be other banks or whatever, right? So they actually understand how they like to see the message or the interface, and they translate it. And I said we'll talk about what exactly this translation means, but you need to understand something needs to happen so that the message that we send from SAP is read by them properly. The message they send from their system is read by SAP properly. Otherwise, the interface doesn't work. So, and this obviously works in the SAP internet or cloud, whatever you might call it as nowadays. It's outside your company firewall. We call it EDI. Now, ALE is another, on the other side, is SAP's own terminology. Application link enabling, right? Now, it's SAP's own concept. It's generally used for communicating within SAP systems within the firewall or client within the firewall. So SAP, let's say we have PI. We also saw PI in the previous slide. See, PI is a middleware system. You can connect with outer world. You can also connect within your own company's other systems, and as SAP to PI, and PI can work with MES, WMS, and other N number of systems through flat file or XML file or web services, other ways of communicating. So something you need to understand here is, why do we communicate with outside companies or outside systems, and why we communicate within our firewall, all these systems? It all depends on the business process eventually, right? Even in materials management, inventory management module, we take the message or IDOC out of SAP and we send it to vendors, which is outside our company. They are different. They're third-party companies. We also send, warehouse transfer orders, or other inventory data or batch data within our own firewall from the IM module or WM module, WMS system, MES system. The systems are all everywhere. Software system basically is nothing but another software, that does certain things like SAP, and they're all everywhere. It's inside firewall, outside firewall. It might be inside firewall today, and company decides to send it outside. They might sell the system outside, outsource it to another vendor to take, or company to take care of the system. It happens all the time. But within firewall and outside firewall, obviously there are security aspects of it, which is usually taken care by the networking and the middleware guys. We don't want to get into that area. We want to focus on how the whole architecture works and how we can build an interface, understanding these different systems to meet your customers' needs. One of your customers' need is definitely going to be, in all the modules, like finance, you need to send an invoice to the customer. And when the customer pays, you need to know when the customer pays for your invoice. And another example is, when you need to send information to the bank for clearing checks or whatever. And you need to send inventory data to the, shop pro system. Or you need to send the purchase order to the vendor. Or the vendor will send a shipment confirmation back to you. See, there's so many different processes and all these different modules within ECC, and that actually calls for this concept of building the interfaces so that, the whole business process can work successfully. It's not just about going and doing configuration. It's going to be, it's enough by nature of how all these systems are all, built. So let's start off with an important concept I thought, called as IDOCS. Okay, like I said, it's intermediate documents. And we look into IDOCS predominantly today in the later of the session today, but obviously there are more to it as well. Let me pause here for another quick second and make sure you all can hear my voice and see my screen properly. All right, guys, please tell me if everything is okay so far. Okay, sounds good. So IDOCS is a name that is given to a different type of data in SAP ERP application. Depending on what data is to be transmitted to external systems or other systems, we have different messages in the concept of IDOCS. We look at all these different messages and message types and IDOC types and all those things, a bit later. For example, sending a material master IDOC. Why do you need to send a material master IDOC? Yeah, you need to send the material master IDOC to the MES system so that MES knows the quantity or the weight or the description of the material or other details that's relevant for the MES system. You need to send to the warehouse management system so that the warehouse management system knows the same related data. Similar to the LIMS or QM systems, or the APO system, whatever matters. So similarly, bill of material, which actually is another concept in SAP that actually lists out what raw materials or components is required to manufacture a semi-finished or a finished product. And that information can go as an IDOC. Material master information can go as an IDOC. And similarly, advanced shipment notification, if you are fulfilling a customer order and the customer, actually sent you an order and you ship the order or the material for the customer, you need to send a shipment notification to the customer. Hey, I shipped it. Okay, advanced. Sometimes we say the shipment notification, advanced shipment notification. So IDOCS is a general concept where all these different sets of data for different business processes or different scenarios or different concepts, we extract the data from SAP ERP system and put it in an IDOC and send it out. Think like an IDOC is like a bus, okay? It's not, it's a one-time bus. When IDOC gets created, it has its own number, it has its own unique number, and that's it. And that carries information from one place to another place. It's a one-time bus. It's not like a bus that goes and empties, comes back up. It's not like that. It's a one-time bus. So IDOCS are actually triggered from the application. When I say application, it's the SAP system, and the type of message depends on which application triggers the message. What that basically means is, MM has its own set of messages, PP has its own set of messages, HR has its own set of messages, FI or QM or W, they all have their own set of messages, and the message gets created whenever that particular application is run. Like, for example, you create a purchase order, you save a purchase order, and you approve a purchase order. Approving the purchase order should create an IDOC with the purchase order information to that vendor, right? Only that the vendor knows. It all has to happen automatically. You don't want people to go and create IDOC, manually. Everything happens automatically. It's a very automated process. And one of your major objectives is not only to build the interfaces, but also to make sure you automate it. And the messages coming from external systems to the middleware are also loaded into SAP system. See, now SAP is not going to just send messages out. It also needs to get messages in, right? For example, vendor will send back his advanced shipment notification when he ships a product to our plant. The customer will send invoice. After paying the invoice, the customer will send invoice back, information back to SAP, or the MES will send back the final production material details, or warehouse management will send back information to SAP saying, I moved the inventory to the storage type and storage bin. So there are a lot of information coming back to SAP. There are a lot of information that goes out of SAP. Usually, in my opinion, it's more like going out than coming in, because keep in mind, SAP will eventually become the central repository of data for the whole organization. See, you can't maintain master data in many different places. That's not an ideal solution. Eventually, the companies will decide to make sure SAP ERP will become the source for master data. So what happens is, so SAP, all the other systems rely on SAP. That's typically how this will eventually end up being. Maybe when they start off the implementation, you might have different systems that is more relied on, but eventually when the implementation is done, all these systems are eventually going to retire, and SAP ERP becomes more stronger in terms of. So there's a lot of message goes out of SAP, and also some comes back into SAP. Usually going out is going to be more. But don't take me for that granted. It all depends on the company to company anyways. So IDOC has 3 parts. One is the control record, data record, and status record. So we'll quickly go into SAP and look into some basic things here. Wow, I can't see it. All right, hopefully you all can see my SAP screen here. I know it is a little smaller, But if I try to make this bigger, I can't do my recording. But hopefully this you should be able to see my screen properly here. If not, let me know. So either way, we are on the easy access screen. Obviously, everybody knows how to get into the easy access screen here. So a transaction that you're going to come across in general, commonly on a day-to-day basis, is WE02, which is IDOC list or IDOC monitoring. And I'm going to just click on execute for now. This clock here will give me all the IDOCs that was created today. So I'm going to pick one IDOC, which is in green color, which basically means this is a successful IDOC. That means the IDOC actually is created and it is actually sent to the system or whatever it needs to do. So there's three segments to it: control record, data record, and status record. Status record basically says what happened to the IDOC from the time it was created, right? So we actually created the IDOC. The status was 01, then the IDOC was ready for dispatch, status 30, and the status is 03 when it is passed to the port. So we'll look into all these terminologies later, but understand the three important status here. Now, these are the only three status? No. It all depends on how the IDOC is created within your application. If you're doing a custom IDOC, there could be multiple different statuses here. But this is a very simple status that has been shown here. But eventually, the IDOC is in green color. The final status is 03. It is green color, which means the IDOC is sent out of SAP. So we'll see where it went and all these things. But the first is the control record. The control record basically says what type of IDOC. Okay, so we'll talk about basic type, message type a little bit later. And which is a material master. NatMas 05 and NatMas is a material master IDOC. And which partner it went to? Recipient. It went to 5 RC11, which is a vendor, I guess. And the sender is basically our sending system. 7, 5, and this when I say sender, this is the system that we're actually logged into. This system is also a sender, right? Someone is sending it, someone is receiving it. And keep in mind, we have port for the recipient. We also have a port for the sender. So every system has an input port and output port. We will also look at that later as well. So don't confuse yourself too much now. So either way, so another other element of this IDOC is the data. See all these different segments here. These are all called segments. This is the parent segment, this is a child segment, and the child segment is also a parent segment in some cases. So it becomes another parent segment, all these sub-child segments. So what does a segment do? They carry data. For example, E1MARAM segment carries, I'm going to double click on it so that you can see it bigger. Open up. Okay. So if you see, this one is sending this material number R1000, which is a finished product, FERP, and it is carrying the material master information to this vendor or whatever the receiver is. Should we send material master information to the vendor? No, not required. But in this example, yes, maybe it's required because the vendor wants to update the information. You might change some information and the material master that the vendor likes to hear all the time. Scenarios could be different, but so this is an example of an IDOC. IDOC number is, this 92205 IDOC number. It has 3 different elements to it, and we talked about the current status is green, which is successful IDOC. Right. So, and this transaction code that we are into is basically WE02. WE02. So we see all these other IDOCs sitting in this IDOC monitor, control panel, or you can call it IDOC list. They are all failed IDOCs. See one in yellow color that is actually waiting to go out. It has not gone out. Sometimes you need to push it out. When I say push it out, you need to run another program to push it out. We'll look into what the programs are later, not required at the moment. And these red colors, something went wrong. Maybe the system is not ready to accept it. Maybe you can't send it out because of support problem or networking problem issues, whatever it might be. So those are error monitoring things that we have to do. And now let's focus on this one green one for now. So there are a couple of transaction codes that in general we want to know. One is SAP EDI. Going back to my EC access screen, the WEDI, which will give me a lot of integration related transaction codes, like how to administer IDOCs, how to test the IDOCs, how to, some structure related information in IDOCs, documentation, how to develop the IDOC, like in case I need to change some field or segment or whatever, how to manage all those things. So WEDI is a general, transaction code. We don't use it often because we usually go to the actual transaction. We look at WE02, which is an IDOC list. Let's go back to WE02. It's a very important transaction code anyway. An IDOC actually has to be created by the application, right? And it has a created time, when it was created, and if it was changed manually, you'll get all this information. Which direction? Keep in mind, SAP sends it out of SAP, SAP sends IDOC out, also receives it in too. So 1 and 2 are the two values you see. One is for outbound IDOC from SAP, and 2 is inbound into SAP. And the IDOC number, if you know. The current status, if you want to search based on status, if you want to go and check all the ones that is failed, status 51, I want to see, or I see a bunch of status 51 failed. I want to see all those passed, that went out of SAP today. So I'll do 03, which directly takes me to the IDOC because there's only one available. And the basic type, you want to search by which material master, or you want to search by production order, or process order, or purchase order, or invoice, or sales order. You can do all those information here. And which partner you're working with. Usually, you'll put the partner number, you'll set the material, basic type, and and the date and directions are the most commonly used ones, which is WE02 transaction code. Then WE09 is a more detailed way of finding something. So before I go on WE09, I'll take some data from here. So see, this is the material master IDOC, and this is the material number, R-1000. And the material number is actually stored in MATNR, which is a field name, and also in A1MARAM, which is a segment name. Okay, segment, field, these are all standard things in IDOCs. So let's go back to WE09 transaction. This is similar to what you saw in WE02 in the first section, but in the later section you will see I can search for an IDOC based on the value I want to search. Let's say I want to search on all the IDOCs that add a customer order, a purchase order, or a vendor number, or material number. Maybe something went wrong. So I will search E1MARAM segment. I will search for MATNR field. I will search for the value, this one, in today's date. It should bring me a bunch of things, obviously, and one is 03 status, right? And everything else is all other different status that failed or whatever, right? So 03 is what we just saw. If I click on it, it will take me to the same screen, 922005. So W09 is a more detailed way of searching for something, but it is a very time consuming because you're actually going into a non-key fields in the table and all. But don't worry too much about, hey, I'm talking about database, fields, tables, I'm a functional consultant, why should I know all these things? You may have to eventually. All right, so another important T code is W20. Whom are we sending this IDOC to, right? So who is sending the IDOC to SAP? Eventually, yeah, you create an IDOC from whatever application and you were successfully able to send it, but whom are you sending to, right? Partners. W20 is a transaction code where you can build all your partners and set up all different things. If you're sending to a vendor, it becomes, there's a different types for customers, vendors, bank, other business partners. And if you're sending within your own firewall, we call them usually as logical systems, like MES systems, warehouse management systems. They are logical systems. In this case, I think we're sending it to 5RC V811. And see, this vendor or this partner, let's say this logical system or this system within our own firewall, 5RC V811 is already set up for material master. Only then we're able to send it. Otherwise, we can't send it. So this setup has to be done. And this setup also has to be done with other inputs as well. Now, which port you're sending it to, right? What is the IDOC type that you're using and which port you're sending it to also matters. We won't go into the ports and all those things right now. But eventually, this setup has to be done before we actually can generate an IDOC. There are many other things, and this is just a few things. And test tool. Before I go to test tool, let me go to WE02 and get the IDOC that passed today. So I'll take the IDOC that is in green color status, which is actually a good IDOC, and I'll try to get the IDOC number. I copy the IDOC number. I'll tell you why. So WE19 is we call it test tool. Most of the times when you're a consultant, you need to test the interfaces. Other systems may not be ready for you to connect and test. Now, other systems may already be ready, but you want to test first before you actually work with other systems because it's all time and resources considered. Because sometimes you need to work with them only on their available time, when you're testing the interfaces. So let's say in this case, Material Master, you actually want to test and you take an existing IDOC and then you create a duplicate IDOC. And then you bring all the structure of data. You want to change the data, you can change the data, and you do standard outbound processing, click on it, and then you say OK. And you see IDOC is written to a file. So now we're actually creating the IDOC and putting into a file. And see IDOC number 922009. It's created, 922009. So let's go back to WE02 again and execute on today's date. And you'll see another one that is in green, which is 922009. So we just tested it. It was not from the application, but we tested it. So it's another way of testing certain things based on how the needs of your testing. It's not the best way to test, but obviously most of the time we do it as well. Sometimes we do performance testing. We load 1,000 data IDOC immediately to make sure it all works properly. Sometimes we do test with various fields and do all those things. So either way, so those are some basic transaction codes. Let's take a quick look into how to generate a sample material master IDOC that we did today. All right, so we know the material number R-1000, right? And we can go into BD10. BD10 is a transaction code in SAP that actually is a standard SAP transaction code where you can create an IDOC in a standard way. Will all companies use BD10? Some of them have their own standard program as well, depending on how customized how their IDOC needs to be. See, all these IDOCs are all customized. They want to change the field or segment that becomes a Z IDOC message type, and eventually then it becomes a new program that has to trigger it because we have different validations to it. Those are all complicated things, but let's get to the straightforward, easy things first. So we do R-1000. I think that's the R-1000. And mass is a message type, and we are sending it to, let me check the partner. Let's go back to WE02. And I go to control record to get the partner. I want to send it to, let's say I'm sending to the same partner. I'll keep this window open, and I'll put the partner I want to send it to. So BD10, I'm putting the material number, the message, and the partner I want to send it to, and I click execute. It says one IDOC was formed and one IDOC is communicated. So let's go back to our WE02 screen and do a refresh here. This one will refresh. And at the bottom, you see, it brought up another IDOC in yellow status, 922010. We just did it now, 2235. And it's in yellow status, which means we need to push the IDOC out. So let's go and push the IDOC out. Let's copy the IDOC number. So why do you need to push the IDOC out? Because we don't want to keep it here, right? The whole purpose of the IDOC is to create from the application and send it out to the necessary partner so that they can do whatever they need to do. So let's go back to another transaction code called BD87. It's a standard program as well. Anything that is not Z or Y is usually standard. So we'll put the IDOC number and click execute. It knows, it brings up this IDOC and knows, okay, I need to send this IDOC out. So I actually click on the IDOC that brought up, and then I click process. One IDOC selected, and then it says data passed to port OK, which means that the IDOC is successful. I go back to my WE02 and I click execute. See, this is green. 922010 is green, which means it's sent out of SAP. So where did the IDOC go in this example, right? Let's take a look at few things. So we go to control record and we see it went to the partner W5RC V11 to the port 00060. The port determines how it is connected to the different system. So this port, so let's go back to WE21. Remember WE21 we saw the setup of partner profile. So we'll go back to, I'm sorry, WE20, right? WE20. We'll go back to the logical system. 5RC V811 is a system we sent the message now, the mass message, material master message. I'll double click on it, and you see the same port that is actually defined here. We defined it, only then you can send it to the port. So the port has to be defined as well. So double click on this port, it will take you to where was this message actually sent. It was sent to a directory, user SAP EC2 sys global. That's where it sent. It basically sent the message to a local directory. But you can send the message to a middleware system, you can send the message to a third-party PI system, I mean our own PI system, or a third-party system. You can send the message or in the form of IDOC into an XML file or flat file or through an RFC web services, there are many different ways of communicating. But in this example, it actually created a flat file within our own drive. Let's go back to this drive and see what's in there. We know the IDOC number, right? The IDOC number is 922010. So we have a transaction code called ALE11, ALE11. Okay? You go there, it gives you a file directory. So we know it went to USR, SAP, EC2, sys, and then global, and it should be here somewhere, because that's what the port is actually pointing to, this drive. So let me actually sort it by the last change, 923. This is the right place. Go back to WE20. Logical systems by RC811, MATMAS 16, USR SAP EC2 sys global, USR SAP EC2 sys global, and this is 23rd today, and one of the IDOC should be ours. Yeah, 922010, right? So double click on it. Yeah. Global. last change 9222010. But this system doesn't allow me to actually see the IDOC, but we have different ways of seeing it. We can do CG3Y transaction code to actually get the IDOC from global 0800. Bunch of zeros, so 9222010. I can't see how many zeros are there. Hopefully I can copy this thing. Into my local system. Let's see the copies. Now, okay. Going back to my desktop, I got test here, it got downloaded. I'll open it with a Word document. See all this junk here. It's not junk, it's actually IDOC. IDOC number 9222010. This is how you read this IDOC number. We won't spend too much time here, but that's the idea. The IDOC is created and it is sent out of SAP. Right, so anyways, so we did create a middle master sample IDOC, and we also did a test middle master IDOC as well. And we'll not go to the codes now. We already passed 15 minutes. We'll talk about it, when we get a chance later. But that's the whole idea of, of how this IDOC can be created and, it can be sent out. And this is just one example. You need to connect with other systems like PI system or other middleware systems to successfully transfer the message back and forth and all those things. So middle master or process order or production order or any HR data, whatever it might be, the idea of integration is the same. So you use the same tools with different messages. So in this class, what we'll basically be doing is we'll spend some time in understanding, not only the technical side of creating the IDOCs, understanding partners and all those different things here. We'll also understand how to work with, other systems like middleware system. What do they need? What does transformation rules and all those things? How does routing work and all those things? Then we'll also understand what are different ways of getting get out of SAP. We just saw one way. Creating IDOC, sending out is one way, but there are many different ways. Why should we have different ways? Depending on the needs, depending on the restrictions and resources, and generating the IDOC out of SAP. And there's so many different ways too. Then we'll also talk about error resolution, how to understand some errors and how to fix those errors and all those things that we're going to come across. And also this course has a project and exam as well that we defined into this course. So not only understanding the technicality of this thing, we want to also understand something else, right? How to work on the project, as a consultant. Here's a paper that we recently put together, which is all about SAP to MES integration, but you can also look into this paper. It's available on our social networking platform, which is SAP to MES integration. So this paper is available on our social networking platform, like I said. But what I want to show in this is, okay, let's stop. There's a picture of, how another way of putting things together. SAP in form of IDOCs into PI to NQSI to MES systems. This MES could be WMS or WAMS or whatever system could be. And similarly, what we saw here is basically a non-file based system integration. Here is, and again, another way of putting things together. But many different possibilities are there when it comes to integrating. when we talk about sequencing the IDOCs, why that matters, then real time or near real time, sometimes the data needs to go immediately, and how real time can we go, and some IDOCs or some sample or some interfaces that we talked about in this paper as well. But what I really want to get into is this picture. It's similar to a SAP methodology, but when you work in bigger companies and businesses, the whole integration becomes a separate project. And they follow the same kind of process. We talked about they do the key decision workshops, prepare for the interfaces, they do the blueprinting, realization, final preparation, they go live, they do support, and they sign off. Similar to any project, any implementation, we also put the same formula applied to the, for our integration project as well. So either way, so we'll talk about managing projects. How do you manage those projects, and how do you work on certain documents that we use for integration projects is what we do. Understanding the technical side of it, understanding the project implementation side of it will be the focus of this training. Either way, let me pause here for a second and make sure I'll answer all your questions here. I'm going to come back to this presentation so that you know the email address you want to mail to. They are usually the scheduling team. All right, so I have a bunch of questions. Let me see. All right, so hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to type it in, guys. Augustine, how long will the training take? It's a 10-hour program. It might go a little bit more than that. It is an intense 10-hour program. We have planned a new batch next Thursday, but the next Thursday batch is actually a batch that goes for 1 month almost. 2 hours on Thursdays, like that. But we are also planning that batch is actually filled. So we are actually planning another batch that will complete within 2 weeks' time, which will start on, which will do on Friday, on Monday, on Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that. So plan is to get it done in 2 weeks. So we'll have another batch starting next Friday. So that will be quickly done in 2 weeks' time frame. What is the difference between IDOC and EDI? I mean, IDOC is a concept within SAP. EDI is a global concept. The IDOC that you create in SAP eventually is converted into an EDI format when it goes outside your business or your client's firewall. So Bright, you're asking, are you going to be teaching this course? Yes, I will be teaching this course. Not the next Thursdays, but the next day, the Fridays is what I'm teaching. I guess you need to check with training at 101ERP.com. They actually fix the price and all those things. So they will give me, they actually get my timing, and they will schedule it based on my time availability and your availability and whatever they plan. Check with them. Kalpana, you have to check with training team. Jexy, I mean the SD, they need to learn this. Absolutely. SD has a lot of interfaces. You send orders, you advance shipment notifications, order changes, inventory data. There's so many things SD does. SD is huge, basically, and interface is something you have to get into. Jahan, you're saying you can't see my screen, but you got to check on your side. I'm not sure if everybody has the same issue, but Jahan, future class will also be on Join Me or Student Webinar. You don't need to join me. Webinar is really good. You probably need to do some, install some software and make sure your system's working good and all. You need to have good internet speed and all. Raise me, yes. We are actually getting into the culture of recording the sessions. We never used to do before, but my management has asked me to record everything that we speak, so everything that we conduct. So yes, it will be recorded. It will be available 24/7 for you to view. If you miss any session, yes, you don't worry about missing, but don't miss any session. That's not the point. Will the lecture note and config documents? Yes, everything that we will do is recorded, so you can go back and look. Whatever documents we put together for the presentation or the sessions will be available to everybody. Hey, Sean, you need to check with the training team on the timing and schedules. I've already given them my availability. I told them next Thursday I'm already doing a batch. That's a Thursday batch, but I'm ready to start a batch on Friday, which is Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. It's like that. So it will be done 2 weeks time period. Quick batch. Tom, is there an interface program to show in this course? Yeah, we look into a lot of interface programs. We look into program that triggers IDOCS. We look into the program that does error, reprocessing. We look into other programs that is required, to run batch jobs and all. So we look into a lot of programs. So mostly we look into the standard SAP programs, but you're going to come across a lot of custom programs and you're going to work in the future, which is again going to be a modification of the existing custom program, standard program. And Zahin was saying the webinar voice is not clear, or you probably need to check on your side, but it looks like a lot of people did not complain. So I'm not sure what to tell you, but probably need to check the internet speed or your computer, speed up stuff there. Biju, yes. Will you give notes for us to preparing IDOCS? Yes, absolutely. Rahul, please use GoToMeeting. It is much clearer than this webinar. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. We will use GoToMeeting only, not GoToWebinar. GoToMeeting is more interactive than GoToWebinar. The class will not be like this, where you'll have to ask questions to chat, and I answer through the chat now. GoToWebinar is more like one-to-many, but GoToMeeting is many-to-many. So we'll definitely use only GoToMeeting because the number of people in the batch will be lower. GoToWebinar, our expectation is to have more people. At the same time, we can't spend time in talking to a lot of people. That's why we have this webinar thing. But GoToMeeting, you're right. GoToMeeting is what we'll be using. Okay. Kalpana, SDMM also call into. Yeah, we have SD. We have interfaces in SD. We have interfaces in MM. Every single core module has interfaces. Zahin, can you also post schedule on how many hours will be on each topic? IDOC? Yeah, it's actually in the curriculum that you'll be going to get. I already put down that information. Zahin, OpenTech, you won't cover that. We won't go into specifics of other systems, other software. We don't go into that specifically. That's not the objective of this presentation of training. Our objective of this training is to understand the middleware systems, understand completely how to work on interface on SAP side. Keep in mind that you are an SAP consultant. We do, yes. Absolutely. You'll get a lot of real-time scenarios as well. And that's why one of the things is all the real-time scenarios is what you're going to do within a project. Yeah. Zain, okay. We'll use GoToMeeting. Don't worry about it. Thanks, Rashmi. All right, Rahul. All right, guys. If you don't have any other questions, Kalpana, after translator from web services, we get coming to the customer. Depends. And after translating the message, it could be directly to an RFC call with the customer system, or through a message base, or it could be any different form of communication. Web services is just one way of communicating between two different systems. If you really want to be in real time, and all we do is web services, but it is more resource and consuming, and well, it's not so flexible as asynchronous way of communicating. Mohammed, PI training is in our scope, yes, but we don't know when. It won't be me. We'll be teaching. It'll be another specific PI. The trainer will be teaching PI. But that's definitely in the plans. All right, guys, any other questions for me? Kalpana, middleware information will be maintained by both sides. The both sides will work with the middleware system or people in the middleware system. The middleware information, yes, for communicating point of view, like which port you connect to, which IP address you connect to, or which system you connect to, host you connect to, those connection details will be set up on both the sides. Only then you can connect. But we don't get into all those things. It's more networking related, but we look into that. Well, guys, any other questions for me? All right, so we passed 25 minutes already. Rahul, yes, that's what we'll do in our training session to resolve some common issues and all, which is our focus, anyways. All right, guys, I want to wrap this up now, and hopefully you had some good picture about this this concept of ALE IDOCS and interfaces and why we do it and why it is important for consultants and SAP to understand and get it going. Right. I'm not sure. Did I answer your question already? Let me see. In the actual plan, how long will the training video be available after? Oh, it's 20% as long as you want. It's in our server. We have we have a server that we put together for all our training participants who are training with us, and you can access the server anytime in the future. There's no restriction as such. That's what I know in the last 5-6 years. All right, guys. Hopefully that answered the question. Kalpana, I know you're asking a lot of questions about web services, but we will look into that a bit later. But let's wrap up now, guys. I need to get going. My wife is already angry at me. But anyways, thanks a lot for your time, and hopefully you learned something today. And don't forget to leave a feedback about this presentation to training101erp.com. And definitely you'll have a copy of this webinar. I think it is still recording. Webinar as well, posted into a social networking platform, 8mmsmile.com. Don't worry, be sure to go into 8mmsmile.com to get into our portal and get into this webinar as well. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a very good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.